Thank you for joining Living One Day Older here in the network. We post on Saturdays, 12 noon on LinkedIn, and our network attracts your more mature audience, which is the 50 plus group. Lodo curates relationships and connects affiliate partners. Are you one of those affiliate partners? With their 50 plus, speaking about products and services to fulfill a more mature lifestyle. Speaking of mature lifestyles, let me introduce to you my guest today, which is Amir Meshel. He is one of my fabulous friends from Australia. Hello, Amir.
Good morning, Amy. It's nice and early in the morning here in Sydney. I'm about 3 hours or about 90 minutes west of Western Sydney, if that makes sense. Thank you so much, Amy, for inviting me over. And I have to say, though, I'm still a year and a half away from being in that 50s club. So I'm still calling myself in my 40s.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But, I started this talking about the 45 plus. So because, you really start looking at age a little bit differently when you kind of cross over into 45, if you know what I'm saying. But anyhow, we're all growing forward with time. That's what I like to call it. I don't really call it aging. We're just growing forward with time, right? And you are in the real estate market. You are a buyer for what you call busy couples, but I would say probably busy people. You've got a real niche over there in Sydney, and you go up the coast, all the way up the coast, Queensland, maybe?
That's right. Yeah, about 1,000 kilometres north to Queensland and about 1,000 kilometres south to Melbourne. So from Melbourne to Sunshine Coast, which is north of Brisbane.
Yeah, that's quite a territory. I don't know how you keep it all straight, but you do. And you claim you're the only Australian house buyer that charges 0% commissions.
That's right. So Australia is very different to the way the US does realtors, real estate brokers, and real estate agents. In Australia, you choose to be either a buyer's agent or a selling agent. Most people aren't both. The one license allows you to do either property management or selling or buying. I'm the only agent in Australia that charges 0 commission. And where I've done that is rather than doing a commission, I've said, well, the starting cost, the engagement cost of a buyer's agent tends to be around that 10% of the commission price, which is around the $2,000 to $5,000 mark, depending on the price of the house. So instead of paying a retainer, my clients pay me just that one-off fee as the monthly fee with no lock-in contracts and a guarantee result, but nothing at the back end. So rather than engaging somebody and wondering, well, how much am I going to end up paying at the end?
Yeah.
There is no end surprise. You engage us, we start working for you, and when we succeed, you pay 0 further. It's only what you see is what you get.
Fantastic. Yeah, those closing costs can really be quite a ticket shocker for sure. But we're here to talk about the 50 plus group, which I am definitely in. That you might have some empty nesters looking for smaller homes, looking for something to move into their later years. Can you touch on that a little bit?
I love how you say that. There's a combination of empty nesters and looking for smaller. Mm-hmm. We call them downsizers. But there's also people that when their kids move out, they sublease those rooms. So instead of having to pay the moving costs and the selling costs and even the headspace of deciding to move away from your community, away from your network, away from your friends, away from your local doctor, instead of making that move, the smarter thing is to age in place. And what that means is maybe you've got a 3-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom apartment unit. You can separate and have 2 separate doors coming in and out. As long as your council or your city allows it, then it's possible using Airbnb, VRBO, bookings.com, and a host of other websites to just lease out 1 room or 2 rooms and share a kitchen so that you're sharing perhaps your kitchen and your bathroom, and maybe your bedroom or 2 bedrooms are for you. And then you have the choice of sharing your car space, your lock-up garage. So either way, it seems like it's a new thing, but it's not. Sherlock Holmes. Do you remember the story of Sherlock Holmes?
It's been going on forever. So yeah. And the thing is, Amir, I was getting very excited. My house, as a matter of fact, is one of those houses that is just pristine for exactly what you're talking about. I can actually put one of those barn doors on the hallway, and I can replace, see, I'm already thinking, my sliders for French doors. I've got 2 driveways. One can be, we can work on the pathway. You could park in the second driveway, come along. I've just got the perfect setup. And I think about that for a few reasons. And one that we haven't touched on is, companionship. It's kind of nice to have someone around to share space with, instead of, if your spouse passes and you've got nobody and you're an aging body and you can't lift things, or you've got somebody there. Want to touch on that?
So 2 things. The first one, I'm in the mountains at the moment. So I generally live by the ocean, which is close to Coogee Beach. If you've ever been to Sydney, you have to come visit Coogee Beach. So let me know if you're here next. I know you've been here, Amy, a few times. Next time you're down, let me take you around to the secret beaches, or the non-tourist stuff that we see around here. But in the mountains, if you go from the beach to the mountains, it's around a 2.5-hour journey west of the Alpine region. And what that means from a cold climate point of view, winter, it snows. Summer, I mean, this is autumn. There's beautiful blue skies. The grass is green. This is the middle of autumn in the mountains. There's completely fresh air. And the distance between here and the big major hospitals is only 2 hours. So the difference from a community point of view is in this little township of Oberon. Oberon, it's based on Shakespeare and Midsummer Night's Dream. So a lot of the streets here are called Shakespeare Street and Titania and Oberon. Anyway, without getting distracted,
Charming.
The community here is so strong. My on the street that I'm on at the moment, one of the next door neighbors passed away this week. And first thing in the morning, we had 10 people in the front yard just visiting the family, hugging, kissing, like it's such a close-knit community. And there's only 6,000 people living in the township of Oberon. The balance between having community, friendship, and making new friends is that, when I do the survey around this area, 20% of the people that live in Oberon came from Sydney. So generally they work in their working age, their peak working hours, until the age of 35 to 47, 48. They were working in Sydney because they did a lot of face-to-face client meetings. Yeah. Now with Zoom, with internet, with ABN, with Australia, we call it NBN, the National Broadband Network.
Okay.
But the way things move, it's so easy to be 2 hours away but have perfect internet reception. I mean, I'm coming through okay, and I'm just using my cell phone, my mobile phone, to get this reception. So it's really high quality, especially, when you compare city to country, there isn't a disconnect anymore. There isn't the one thing doesn't have facilities, the other one does. And I'm only 100 meters from the local hospital. So there's still a library, a DVD rental place. If you have DVDs rather than Netflix, Stan, and all those other ones. 2 supermarkets, 5 cafes. Even though there's only 6,000 people here, all the facilities are designed for people who want to age in place. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, you can convert your current house. But the reason people do the 2 things you mentioned, either downsize or they relocate, the reason they do that is the cost. When you're living in the middle of a CBD, in the middle of a city, the cost of the land, not the house, the land is so high that you're paying taxes, you're paying contributions, duties, and there's just different names for taxes. Whether it's for the council, for the local area, for the federal government, for the state government, each one has a level, a levy, a duty, a tax. In the country, the piece of land is worth less. But if you build a house for 100,000 in the city or a house for 100,000 in the country, the house gets older at the same speed. And so remember you were talking, Amy, about the cost of maintenance, the time, the fact that you need to mow lawns.
Right.
A place like this that has mostly concrete with a little bit of a backyard,
yeah,
it's so much snow. right? And you can plant roses, you can plant your tulips, you can have a little bit of a garden, and you have enough rainfall in the mountains to actually grow your vegetables. So it's worthwhile. Oh, that worked. It's worthwhile to do a vegetable patch. It's worthwhile to get to know your local community center. And of course, there's a sailing club and golf club and all that. They're all within 500 meters away. So there's nothing that's really far. But really, it's a question of where do you want to age, and what contribution do you want to make in your last 30 years compared to your first 50 years?
I just envision myself one day. Yes, I love my house here, and I do have my community, but I would love to, work out a way to. I mean, I've just always wanted to see myself with just one of those small yards. And where I saw somebody aging in place was when I was in New Zealand, and I stepped out into her yard, and it was perfect. It was just the perfect size to have friends over, to have a barbecue, or Barbie. You guys just call them Barbies, right? You don't call them barbecue. Yeah. So it was perfect size for entertaining, to go out there and get some sunshine. The birds, if you plant right, they've got the berries, the birds come, and the squirrels. And so it was really lovely. So I could appreciate, the sizing down with the yards, particularly. Yeah. And as far as taxes goes, that's exactly why we did not move to the lake. Gosh, they pay like 3 times the amount in taxes living on the lake.
This area, I'm on the main street. So the main street of Oberon changes name to this street, which is Carrington Avenue. But I'm like literally 600 meters to Oberon Council. So the headquarters of Oberon Council is 600 meters in one direction. I'm about 300 meters away from the library and the supermarket area and the cafe. 1 kilometer further, then there is a aged facility, aged care nursing home, where you do have medical care 24 hours. So each room is monitored, and there's staff that are medically trained. They have the facilities as well as hoists. So some of the mobility things that you don't want to incorporate into an existing house are built into the over 55s community, because it is an aged care facility, specifically when mobility drops down, with no stairs, with wider hallways, easier turning circles, so that even the doorways to each of the bathrooms and the basins and sinks are lower down.
It does seem logical that you can have your parents. You're here, and you are where you are, and then your parents can be close if they need a facility on that level. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the one thing that people don't realize is when they become a full-time carer for their parents, that means that they can't leave the house. Yeah. They now can't have a job, and they stop contributing. Even the Zoom, if you think of what you might do if you're working on Zoom still requires you to be focused and answering without the background noise of the bell ringing to say, hey, can you get me the remote control so I can change the air conditioning speed, or the sound of the radio or TV, like little things like that. It's still disrupted work. When you go to buy the little fit out things for your existing house, it's very easy to upgrade your existing house into something that has fire separation from one side of the house to the other. The reason people avoid it is they don't want to share. They want their privacy, but they don't realize when you move to a duplex, or you move to a condominium, that move means you're still sharing with somebody. They hear your ceiling and your floor. You might have somebody above you or below you. You're actually better off using your existing house and separating it sideways, rather than having somebody live above you or below you in a condominium or a unit. Yeah. So just do the maths to find the best contractor in your area, licensed, your best licensed contractor in the area, because you don't want mistakes when things fall over. Yeah. It makes life so much easier. And it means if you do decide to age in place with your elderly parents and grandparents, that's also possible. Because if you separate the house, you can build a concrete ramp. You can actually now buy a metal ramp, which is modular. So instead of doing what we used to fabricate in the spot, which was very expensive, you can now get it delivered to your local area, where the local person with a license can actually just install the ramp. so that you can avoid the stairs you previously had in your freestanding home. A lot of those things you can age in place, but you still need one thing, and that's going to be the same everywhere. You need the physical floor space. So if you have, like this house has a front yard and a backyard. The front yard is like a flower bed with a few raised things, you know, with cobblestones around the outside. The backyard has a little bit of, I don't know if you could see my apple tree. I gathered 15 apples from that 2 weeks ago and brought it home to the family in Sydney. But there's a little bit of mowing to do, but it's tiny compared to everything else that's concrete. So all that concrete front means, especially close to the house, you have good drainage, you have a great place to sit in the sun, play cards or do the cookout, the barbecue.
And you can do potted plants, you know?
You can do potted plants all around the retaining wall on the outside. Yeah. So it's the balance between what you'd like to do in your free time and what you don't. One thing I'd love to ask you, Amy, would that be okay?
Go ahead. All right.
From the shows that you've done so far, when people think about their definition of themselves, and this comes back to I'm doing gestures and they're blowing up the screen. When people are doing,
that's a really big question.
Yeah, must have been. When people are doing the identity of themselves, they think that their identity is their job, or their identity is their family, their identity is the contribution they've done. But let me ask you this, and I've noticed this in the last week. People celebrate somebody's birth. Then when somebody passes, they're remembered. So the two biggest events are the birth and the death of somebody. There's always those bumper sticker sayings, which are like wild, but they kind of make things easier to understand. Well, the bumper sticker says there's nobody that dies wishing that they would have spent more time in the office.
Right.
I don't think that's true. I think that people should contribute when they want to contribute. It's to do something that's your contribution, to create a Facebook, to create a cure for cancer, to create something. That creativity is what you want to be remembered by. That's what you want to have on your gravestone at the end. Your headstone should read, made an impact, if that's what you want. I'm not saying everybody should do that. But when people are balancing what's wrong and what's right, and ethically saying, spend more time with your family, spend less time at the office, they're not thinking about the jobs people do because they love the job. They're thinking about, is it all about money? And have you heard the saying, you can't take it with you?
Right, right. Of course.
What a load of horse dung. Because you know what? When you come up with that penicillin, because you've discovered something growing accidentally while you're spending the extra 15 hours a week working, that penicillin has cured so many things on earth. Your legacy isn't driving your kids to the tennis game. It's not chauffeuring your kids to the birthday parties. It's not making more cupcakes for your school. That is very valuable, and kids need that. But that's not everything. And so when people think about aging, in their heads, everybody's got a specific hat. They go, okay, retired person. I wanted to say that this idea, this concept came to me from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Mm-hmm. There is a great episode where one particular planet or society believes that when you age to 65, you no longer contribute in your workplace and you become a drain on your family. Medical costs in the last few years of life tend to go up a lot. So in this one society where Star Trek is, it's a drama, it's a comedy, it's a fantasy, but the idea is to speak about ethical and moral concepts in a story form. So in this one concept, the aging parent is about to find a scientific breakthrough that'll save millions, but because their birthday is coming up in 3 days, they're told that they must drop their work and hand over to the younger generation. They must. They're not allowed to continue. It's not just the contribution towards money. It's the contribution to your heart, to your goal. If you're willing and you're able to keep working and you want to, then age is just a number. Your cognitive ability is what you've been practicing. There's people who have been practicing their gym workouts at the age of 77, and they can lift more than a 25-year-old. There's people that are...
Maybe we shouldn't call it work. Maybe we should call it contribution. There's times where I have had more free time on my hands, and I have found that my mood tends to go south. You know, there's one thing about being very thoughtful and introspective, for sure. That's not. But there's also what can happen is we can tend to get very nostalgic, think about what was, and then, you know, you could just, your mind can start playing tricks on you. And so the key is to keep it busy and to be productive. And we just talk about, there is so much to be done. So no, we're not here to just fall off the earth at the age of 65, for crying out loud. We have too much to give, too much to give. So Amir,
one of the podcasts I was listening to this morning, the speaker was in their 40s, and they ran a 3-hour marathon only after they hit 40. So around 45, it was the first time they were running marathons since 20 something in their 20s, but only achieved the 3-hour time after the age of 40. It's actually succeeding better than yourself, because you can only compete against yourself, succeeding better than you yourself succeeded when you were in your 20s. And can I smash one more paradigm? Do we have one more time?
We do. One more. Let's do it.
One more. So there's a saying out there that Generation Z, or the X generation, the Y generation, the Z generation, they have a expectation mentality that they deserve to. But you know what, Amy? In the previous generation, the 70-year-olds also believed that they deserve to get a seat on the bus. So when somebody is on crutches, they're on a bus, they're unstable, and they're 25, and then there's a 75-year-old who's healthy, wealthy, and wise, and they've dyed their hair a dark brown rather than white, visually you can't look at the two and say the 75-year-old deserves a seat, the 25-year-old doesn't deserve a seat, because it's no longer an age thing. No. It's more of a human thing. If you realize somebody is wobbly, frail, and could hurt themselves if they don't have a seat, for goodness sakes, give them a seat. It's not an ageist thing. Visually, you can say, yes, it makes sense for me to give away my seat, to give them a seat because they need it more. Okay. But here's the reason why people get upset, and this is millennials, it's Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, and the new ones are called Gen Alpha. Yeah. Gen Alpha is the largest population. So if you think about the baby boomer population that was the largest, Gen Alphas that are already alive now, they're about to be 2 billion people. From a population of 8 billion, they're 2 billion. So they are the largest population we've ever had in the world. They'll be the people who are voting for us. They'll be the people that make the decision in 20, 30, 40 years' time to say how our pension, our 401ks, superannuation, and all of the money that we think that we've saved up is going to be taxed, is going to be looked after. Medicare, Medicaid, healthcare, all that stuff, all those decisions won't be made by us. They'll be made by the future generation, the Gen Alphas. So one thing that is recurring in real estate is the anger that some people have that they will no longer be able to afford housing. They'll always be renting. They'll never be owners of a house because the previous generation won the lottery. They managed to buy before all the inflation, and now the more you earn, the house prices move faster than you can earn. So that the cost of the deposit becomes impossible to reach. But that's an expectancy. That's a deserving mentality. The better way to think about it is, what can I do to make a difference? What can I do to make a change? How can I help society, and how can I be helped? So if you get into the network where you can refer to people that can refer to you, and you can build an affiliate group where people, you know, backwards and forwards with you, that's when you're growing your lifestyle. you're growing what contribution you do, and also how you live, where you live, and how you will be remembered 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now.
And we are going to close on legacy. Thank you, Amir. Thank you for popping on to our Living One Day Older. And we are growing forward with time together in a network that I cherish so much. I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to meet and to get together once a week. And thank you, Amir. Thank you for coming on as well to Living One Day Older. You will see our broadcasts on LinkedIn every Saturday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And don't worry, you guys in Australia, it's recorded. So you can just pop onto Amy Hammond's LinkedIn and you will find each interview that is featured there. Have a great day, you guys. Thanks for coming in. Bye.